At the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, British sprinter Derek Redmond was favored to win a medal in the 400-meter semifinal, but 150 meters in, his hamstring tore. He collapsed in pain. He was clutching his leg, and then by sheer will, he got up and began to move, hobbling down the track, one painful step at a time, determined to finish. At the same time, out of the crowd, a man broke through security. It was Derek's father, Jim. He pushed past officials. He ran to his son. He wrapped his arms around him, and he whispered, "You don't have to do this." And Derek said, "Yes, I do." And his father said, "Then we're going to finish this together." And they did, side by side, not for a medal, but for something far more important and enduring. That moment remains one of the most powerful images of fatherhood. It shows us what love can be like when all things fall apart, as they sometimes do. And in that image, a father wrapping his arm around his limping son, we glimpse the kind of love I think we're all called to embody in our lives. Enduring, present, and committed every step of the way. This morning we have three meaningful moments intersecting. It's Commitment Sunday as we bring forward our commitments to the West Side Outside campaign, our drop in the ocean. And as I shared last week, we are 60% of the way to our $5 million benchmark. Each of you will be invited to either say you're all in because you've made your commitment or to bring it forth today. This vision has been in the making for years, and it was been carried forward by our current leadership, and in many ways it will be carried forward by the leaders who will be stepping up to be installed and ordained today. As Presbyterians, we are a representative government. We elect people to serve on our behalf for a period of time, for 3-year terms, and so we will invite our elders and deacons to come forward, and we will pray for them, and we will ask them to step forward in faith. It's also Father's Day, and with all of these types of days, there are mixed emotions always for perhaps fathers who are no longer with us, or fathers who maybe didn't love us the way we needed to, or needed them to all the gratitude that we feel in our hearts for fathers and father figures. People who have walked beside us with patience, with wisdom, with strength, and whose lives have imprinted ours. Each of these moments, although different, have this continuity, this similarity. It's about showing up, not just once, not just some of the time, but again and again and again. Not with all the answers, but with an open heart, a willing spirit, and generous hands. Fathers who don't just tell us what to do, but have stayed close to us as we have discovered things in our own lives. People who did the best to keep the household going quietly, faithfully, never asking for applause or even recognition, but whose love brought security and safety to the home. Elders and deacons who aren't seeking the spotlight but are saying yes to the hard work of discernment and leading, who are making a commitment to listen and to learn and to serve with humility and compassion, who remind us that leadership is about being faithful, doing your part, and it's about being transformed into the likeness of Jesus for the sake of others. In Romans 5, Paul sketches the slow arc of spiritual transformation. It is a powerful recipe to apply to our lives. We boast in our affliction, our suffering, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not disappoint. This is not an easy message, is it? This is not dripping with sentimentality, is it? This is not naive optimism. This is hope found through suffering. Paul does not glorify pain here, but what he does say is that pain can transform us for the better if we're open to it. Paul knows that God met him in his suffering, and he believes that it is possible for all of us, not in spite of it, but because of the very things that break our heart. Father Richard Rohr likes to say, if we don't transform our pain, we will most assuredly transmit it or transmute it, which is to turn it inward. So we're called to transform, to be transformed by our suffering. And what transforms us the most, I think, when we're suffering, is somebody who is present to us, who is with us, who is willing to listen and be in the midst of it with us. That's the kind of love that transforms us, love that hangs in there with us over time, love that lingers, love that may speak words, but more often than not is a hand on the shoulder or a knowing glance, a loving whisper, anything to point to the God who walks with us in the midst of our pain and helps us find our way with whatever it is that we're suffering about. But this transformation is not quick. We can't throw it into the microwave like microwave popcorn and all of a sudden it's there. That's not the way it happens. It grows more like trees, and it doesn't grow in a straight line. Even though Paul can say all this wisdom in one word, we don't get from suffering to hope in a straight line. It doesn't happen quickly. It grows like trees. It grows like trees, like the rings of a tree. We don't see it. We can't see it in ourselves. We can't see it in others, but we can look back and recognize there was something happening. We were growing. We were being transformed. I've always loved that Portuguese proverb, God writes straight with crooked lines. And the path to hope is not a straight line. It's a long and winding road that takes a lifetime, which is why we are called to trust and to be patient with our suffering, to trust in the slow work of God, to quote Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who reminds us that we are impatient people. We are impatient in being on the way to something we cannot yet grasp. And hope is always out in front of us. We can't grasp it or cling to it, but we can give ourselves to it over time. We can trust in the slow work of God, that God is doing something new in us even when we can't see it. Layer by layer, through seasons of light and pressure. And one day we look back and we say, yeah, God was at work in the suffering. Earlier this month, we lost a modern-day prophet, one of the great biblical scholars, one who has shaped my life, and I know Pastor Liz's as well, Walter Brueggemann. Brueggemann wrote, "The gospel is fiction when judged by the empire, but the empire is fiction when judged by the gospel." The empire is fiction when judged by the gospel. He knew the slow work of God can seem so foolish in a world obsessed with speed and control and domination. He knew that. But he also understood that real change happens in the depths, in the quiet, in the deep places where hope is birthed in our lives. Brueggemann shaped our imagination, and he shaped the courage of the church in a way that almost no one has in the last 100 years. His wisdom gave us a voice for our time. He taught us that faith is not about managing polite religion, but about living with defiant hope. He wrote that our task as the church, our prophetic task, is to tell the truth in a society that lives in illusion, to grieve in a society that practices denial, and to express hope in a society that lives in despair. That sounds like Paul, doesn't it? Not a bypass around suffering or over suffering, but a path through it, a path of endurance, a path of character formation and hope. Brueggemann reminded us that hope does not need to silence the rumblings of crisis in order to be hope. Hope rises within the crisis. What a powerful idea. Hope does not need to silence the rumblings of crisis, but it is birthed in the crisis itself. I think that's what today is about. That's what we're called to embody. That's what fatherhood is at its best. That's what ordained servant leadership is. That's what faithful giving to a cause that none of us could support by ourselves, but all of us can do together. These are not quick fixes. These are the practices of showing up again and again, doing our part to serve and to give and to stay in it and to be hopeful. People of faith reminding us that we can't do it alone. We won't do it alone, and we weren't created to do that. So wherever you are today, whatever you're going through, whether you're grieving, whether you're tired, whether you're hopeful, whether you're anxious, whether you're peaceful today, know that the Spirit is with you, that the church walks beside you, and the love of God is there at the heart of suffering, sustaining you in ways that you might not even see today, but you will be able to look back and recognize the hand of God. So don't transmit your suffering. Don't hurt people because you're hurt. Do the hard work. Be transformed by your suffering, because suffering produces endurance. And endurance produces character. And character produces hope. And hope does not, it will not, and it cannot disappoint. So as we walk together in faith, may we trust in the slow, faithful work of the one who writes straight with crooked lines. Amen.